Hello, everyone. It is just me. I think we have a guest coming, but I have no problem talking on my own. In fact, if you were just watching Bible every morning, we're having some technical glitches, and that's okay as long as you don't freak out and think I did something wrong. No, there things are going to go wrong, and eh, they'll throw you off guard. As you can see, I'm a little like, wait, what's going on? I like having this exclusive time with you. And our guest may show up, may not show up today. Uh, I was told we had a guest. But again, sometimes things happen that are unexpected, and you just got to roll with it. So uh, I can go in any direction I want right now. What do I want to talk about? Don't tune out. Don't tune out. It's coming. It's coming. What is Michael going to decide to talk about today? All right. I'll talk about an email I just got from. All right. So if you've been following me in my journey on what I am really focused on, you will know it's right here, right? This says Armenian history, right? Landmark events in Armenian history. And this is actually the map that's used in our Bible Every Morning show. And if you are a Christian and spent any time in your Bible, you should recognize this region. This is not Jerusalem. This is just north of Jerusalem. And then this is where the seven churches that are mentioned in the book of Revelation. Also, this is like Galatia. Galatia's over here from the book of Galatians. And then Thessalonica is in here. Ephesus is around here somewhere. So these are Antioch, where Christianity, literally right above my finger right there, is where Antioch, where the word Christianity was coined. So I've been working on this thing, this Armenian history project. And when I say Armenian history, some people out there are like, Armenian, what's that? Never heard of it. Honest, God's honest truth. When I first started on this project, I called my brother, who lives in Minnesota or North Dakota at the time, or no, maybe it was Minnesota. He's back in Minnesota. I said, "You ever heard of an Armenian?" And he's like, "No, what's that?" And then I said, "Kim Kardashian." She goes, "Oh." He goes, "Oh." So most people have heard of an Armenian. They just don't know about Armenian. But we need to be thinking about that ethnicity a little differently. Like, they are a special people. And why do I say that? They're the first Christian nation, the first corporate group, the first ethnic population as a whole, as a corporate body, to adopt Christianity as their governing principles as a nation. The first Christian nation. And that is something that Jesus commanded. He commanded, he said in Matthew 28, 19, and 20, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Now go and make disciples of, the word of is there, of all nations, right? All nations, not just individuals, but of all nations. And it's unavoidable. There's no way around what that is saying. It's not saying just some of the people in the nations. If you get some of every ethnicity, then that counts. That's not what is being said there. It can't mean that. And we in the modern current day church tend to interpret it that way. Well, I don't know that everybody's going to get saved. I'm not saying that everybody gets saved, but having every nation adopt Christianity is the will of God. I mean, it's the will of Jesus as he is ascending. It's the last thing he says, and the person's last words are always very, very important. They stand out. These are your marching orders. Go and do it. So Thaddeus and Bartholomew, two of those disciples, wandered in this direction and preached the gospel and converted and made converts and those converts made converts, and it spread. And about 250 years after Jesus resurrected and ascended, and the disciples stepped out about 250 years later, it had spread so much to an event happened that the Christians were converted, that the nation of the Armenians were converted to Christianity en masse. And this is about 301 AD. So that's something I've been working on, and is still working on, and will be working on forever. But to bring that knowledge, the knowledge of these events, to the Christian population, to current day believers. We have been distracted by bad theology, by a lot of things, but also by bad theology. And reading the Bible clearly and understanding the Bible clearly, it should be every one of our intent. It should be at the top of our list of things to do, right? It shouldn't be, and I'm guilty of this, but it shouldn't be check the headlines first thing in the morning, right? I try not to. I do Bible every morning for that reason. I spend time with the Lord first, and do desire to seek the truth. And it's there. Some of it's just staring us in the face, and we've been taught wrong things all of our lives, or all of our Christian lives, and just assumed that these other teachers know, and they've done the footwork and all the legwork, and we just, well, if that person's saying it, it must be true. But the fact of the matter is, we're all wrong right now about any number of things. For example, my dad told me when I was a kid, I think I was about 9 or 10 years old, and my parents were split up, but my mom had a car called a Chevy Nova. And my dad said, you know why the Chevy Nova doesn't sell very well in Mexico? Because no va in Spanish means it doesn't go. No va, it doesn't go. And I, as a 9-10-year-old kid, I'm like, oh, interesting. That's an interesting tidbit about auto sales in Mexico, right? This particular model of Chevrolet didn't sell well in Mexico. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I don't know that my dad actually believed that, or if he was just joking with me. I really don't. To this day, I should ask him. But I lived in Mexico. I was a missionary in Mexico, and there's a gas. How we have Exxon and Mobil. The brands of gas. There's a gas. One of the biggest gas companies, fuel companies in Mexico is Nova. Nova. Really, if anything, the gas to fuel your vehicle makes it go. So if that were true, so I did just a little bit of research, and this is decades later. So I believed for decades that little thing was true, and it was a trivial piece of information. It didn't affect my life, my day in and day out. It was just a little trivial piece of information that I took for granted because somebody I respected and regarded as an authority figure said it to me, and I had no reason not to believe it. It seemed to make sense. But living in Mexico now, speaking Spanish semi-fluently and understanding, Novas were very popular actually in Mexico, and the gas naming, ooh, we have Rodney and Rippy. Oh, dude, I was just vamping here for like 8.5, 9 minutes.
I'm so sorry. My
No,
crazy computer. Again, I have bamboozled computers problems this morning.
It's okay, because we all have technical issues at different times, and we had another. I do a show prior to this show. I don't know if you're aware of that. I do a show called, brace yourself, Bible Every Morning, and we had a technical glitch on that show this morning that caught us off guard. So it's in keeping with your technical issues are just, it's going to be that kind of Tuesday. I hope not. Do I have the day right? Is today Tuesday or is today Wednesday?
Wow. Oh, and now, you know what? And your computer just glitched. Yeah. Your computer just glitched, and you almost sound like Max Headroom. Remember that? No.
Did you hear any of what I said? Yes, Max Headroom. Max Headroom is anticipating.
That's it.
So Rodney, all right, now I have you. We've got 20 minutes. And
yes,
I was just vamping, and here's what I was talking about. So maybe this will be a perfect segue. We'll figure out a segue here. I was saying that we are all mistaken. We are all wrong about any number of things at all times. We just have information in our heads. Some of it is incidental stuff that we learn that doesn't affect our daily lives, and some of it might be more, more important. We may have wrong beliefs about very important things. And the example I was using was my father when I was 9 or 10 years old. Have you ever heard of the Chevy Nova? The Chevy Nova, the car, the automobile?
Yeah, of course.
So he told me when I was a kid, that car didn't sell very well in Mexico. You know why? Have you heard this one? Do you know why?
Is it the name? There was I remember. Yeah, I've heard that story. Yeah.
So you have heard. So this has gone around, and Nova.
And because I'm a Chevy guy, I like Chevys, and so I got the story. Yeah.
Good. Then you are here to corroborate what I'm talking about. Good. So the words, the name of the car, Nova, doesn't go, right? It doesn't
go.
go. And that's why, quote unquote, it didn't sell well in Mexico. Well, I am now a Spanish speaker. I was a missionary in Mexico. I lived in Mexico for about 6 months, and I'm fairly fluent. And one of their main gas stations there is called Nova, right? If anything, it does no go. Why would you buy that fuel that doesn't work? No go. So it's an urban legend. That very thing was somebody saw the word Nova and made that up and passed it along, and I believed it for decades. So just maybe 10 years ago, I decided to actually go on Google and research it, and sure enough, it's just one of those urban legends that has no bearing in reality. So, as an example of a thing that I believed because I trusted my father, and he may have been joking at the time, or he may have believed it himself, and may still believe it. But we all have things that we are wrong about, and it is incumbent upon us to try and find out truth from falsehood. And how do we do that? So that's kind of where I was going to go with this. If you didn't show up, I would still be talking about that.
Well, Rodney, that's good. When you start talking about life, now we have to figure out what is really real and what is really false. Attitudes, judgment calls, and are things stereotypical? Are these things made up? We're running into a real serious problem now that people honestly don't know what's real and what's made up, what's make believe. People don't know who's being real, who's being deep fake. There could be so many things that you could think of, but that's why we have to really honestly take a look and assess everything and say, wait a minute, let me put myself in this person's shoes. Do I believe this thing about this person, these people? Where's the real truth here? And as you start to really peel the layers away, you get down to the bottom truth of how would I want to be treated? Would I want people thinking this way about me? And I think that's what we forget, the human commonality, that we're all brothers and sisters. I don't care what your race is. I don't care where you come from. And I told somebody, we all want the same thing. I don't care if you go to the deepest part of wherever, people love family. They love tribe. And they just want to be able to eat. Everybody's got to eat, sleep. Nobody wants to have to look over their shoulder every 5 minutes. And so that's what's going on in the world. I really believe that.
You hit on, I absolutely agree. We want the same thing. And when you narrowed it down, you used the word that I think is being targeted, family, right?
Sorry.
Family. It's like, it's the most fundamental, aside from individual, right? You're an individual first. Right. You are one person responsible for your own actions. It's up to you to make of life what is, you can't control where you were born, how you were born, what you look like. You have no control over any of that. But it is up to you to make something, to do something with your life, not to blame others, right? And do what you can. You've been placed where you are, and you can flourish, right? But next, after individual, it's family, and family is this as natural a thing as you can imagine, right? A man and a woman falling in love. Are you married? Are you a married man? Are we having a glitch here? Rodney, are you a family man?
I am. You know what? I haven't ever been married yet, but I've been in some really loving relationships. They just pooped out. They didn't make it. But at the same time, I believe in love. I really believe. I was just having a conversation earlier with somebody saying, there's certain people when you find that that person, that soulmate, you go, I'm all in, they're all in, and it works. Some people say, oh, you can't find love on the internet. You know what? You might be treated like the lowest dog on the planet, but you might be able to go somewhere else and someone sees you and they love you and they want to support you and motivate you and push you, and they want you to pull them and just be together, and it's you and them against the world. I believe in love like that. I really do.
I agree. I have a friend or a couple that are friends of ours that they met on the precursor to eHarmony, right? So eHarmony was one of the first online dating apps or whatever. And this was like just prior to that. So this is the beginning of the online dating thing. And they have always been embarrassed. They've always been embarrassed to acknowledge that. But it's like, this is just a communication device, right? And it's actually, it opens up pathways. It's like you can have a genuine relationship with someone over the internet. It's like you and I consider you a friend, and we've never met in person, right? We've never met.
And we will. We're having lunch soon.
Oh, absolutely. Man. Ooh, good idea. Yeah, we should. Weekends are going to be best for me, so we'll put it on
anytime, brother. Anytime.
But what was I going to say?
eHarmony and love.
Well, yeah. So I was going to go on this tangent, and maybe we'll go there. Have you ever heard of catfishing?
Yeah. Funny. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a birthday. I'm on the internet. I'm on Facebook. I get 500 birthday wishes. Me being the crazy person I am, I'm trying to respond to every single one of them. There are people who I don't know, I never met, and I end up getting this really beautiful chick. And I said, I even skipped it. She was so beautiful, I skipped it. I thought that was probably catfish right there. But about a month later, when I got around to it again, sending out thank you messages and pictures and things, I said, hey, thank you for the birthday wish, appreciate it. And the girl was live. I saw her light was on. So she responded. I was like, okay, Rod. But we started chatting. And come to find out, she was really this beautiful person. Gorgeous, as a matter of fact. And she was real. And she was like, oh, and we talked. Next thing you know, we were quasi having a long distance relationship. I had to go home to North Carolina. I flew into Tennessee, met her, and I said, look, I'm on my way driving to my dad's house. You want to go? She goes, yeah. Jumps in the car with me, takes off to North Carolina, meets my folks, has a great weekend with me, but I was on a short trip, and I said, look, I got to go back. So we talked 10 hours driving back. And the whole thing is, if you want to be with somebody, if you want to communicate with somebody, it's about honesty. It's about heart to heart. It's about supporting one another. And I think that people have gotten away from love and real honesty. And yeah, there's always going to be more beautiful women out there. There's always going to be more men for the women or whatever. But the whole point is this: do you two truly love each other? Do you two want to really get behind each other and stand behind each other? Not and be like Bonnie and Clyde, back to back. It's us two against the world. When you find that I don't care, you can't put a race. Somebody was telling me, well, Rodney, would you marry somebody outside your race? I'm like, does love have a real race? Does it really? I've honestly, I have to say, I've dated everything on the planet practically. And love is love. Once you figure it out and you see people, love is love.
Dude,
that's it.
Let me just give a little personal. I got so many. Listening to you makes me want to go in so many different directions, and I love that. That's a good conversation.
We're gonna have lunch, man. Go ahead.
Yes. So I'm the only, with my last name, right? It's the male that takes the last name. So I have two sisters. So I'm my father's only son, right? So I'm the only one with the name to pass on. And then my father, even though he had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. None of them had children. So I'm not just the only one in my father's line, but I'm the only one in my grandfather's line. And I have one son, right? So I have one son. So there's the very thin thread of this, this line from my grandfather's line. And so I married a Chinese American, like she's first generation Chinese American. She's an American girl. She speaks some Chinese, but English is her first language. She's an American. She's a California girl. She's a gorgeous California girl. She's 100% Chinese, which means I have merged my grandfather's lineage with some other ethnicity. Right? Some other ethnicity that's not pure, like, I mean, what is white? Like Slavic is, my grandfather is Slavic. Slavic, as in Czechoslovakian, but the Slovakian side. That's actually technically a minority. Like if you go in the United States, however they categorize, it's technically a minority, but I don't, I'm a white guy, but I don't care. I don't care at all. And I don't care about the lineage being some ethnicity. I am so in love with my wife. I feel like God put us together, and we've been married going on 23 years now. And so I love that you said that. It doesn't matter. Grace has nothing to do with love. Love is love. And here's another. So I want to get back to that catfish thing for a minute, because there was a show, and it might still be on the air, called Catfish.
I remember.
Reality show. And the guy who basically the executive producer created a documentary because he was catfished and did a documentary, and it was a successful documentary. And then MTV picked, or I don't know if it was MTV or VH1 or somebody picked it up and turned it into a TV show where there's a bunch of people out there, online, reaching out and having relationships and communicating, and they meet somebody, and that person represents themselves a certain way, and some of these relationships are years long, ongoing for years and years and years. And then one of them, gets suspicious. Like, I wonder if this person is real, if this is a real representation of this person. And they've been communicating for years and know intimate details about each other. And so they have a camera crew, and they go and they schedule it, and they meet. And 9 times out of 10, it's, some person is they found the most attractive pictures of someone else and represented it as themselves. They're just embarrassed about their own lives, their own, who they are. And so the show, it's a perfect show where there's all the suspense, and then the reveal that it's like, oh no, this, and how is the person going to react when they find out that this person that they've invested so much of their life into is not, at least physically and visually, not the person they've been imagining all this time. And then sometimes there's, very often in that show, there's this just negative reaction. They storm away, and that's perfect for TV, and it's exploitative and all that. But here's the thing that stood out to me. The reason I watched the show, and I didn't, I watched the show because I work at a job and the TV's on sometimes, and just glance and it's on, but I don't watch it now. But what happens more often than you would expect, because they always do a recap at the very end of the show, these people maintain their relationships. They maintain their friendships because they had a need that was being satisfied, a need of acceptance, of belonging, of having someone listen to their deepest desires or their deepest concerns, and being intimate. That is a fundamental need that we all have, and it was being satisfied. But one side of the relationship was covering that deep need with a shell that was not, it was a facade, right? We all have put on a facade at different times, but I thought that was very revealing about the nature of human beings, that these people, even after being so deceived by someone, they had already had such a strong bond that the bond overcame all of the superficial differences, or the superficial, and it's like, oh, that's a good thing. When I see somebody walking down the street, am I glitching, Rodney? Can you see me? Technical glitch. I don't know if you guys can see me or if you guys see Rodney. Is it glitching on my end, or is it glitching on Rodney's end? I'm just going to keep talking until.
I don't know. It's our internet bugaboos. I'm here.
You're back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it was you. I can see myself. But go ahead.
Okay. Were you talking? Because I was vamping.
I was listening to you.
I didn't know. I didn't know which side was glitching. That happens sometimes. Now I've lost my train of thought. But I was saying when people.
Let me see.
I remember
you're watching the show. Okay, people kept relationships. People kept the relationship. Mm-hmm.
When I see somebody walking down the street, or my kids, zeroed into their phone, sure, there's plenty of problems with being so hooked on these devices, but the fact of the matter is, it connects us with other humans, right? Unless you're playing a game, people that are on these chats or these social media apps, we desire, it is a fundamental need for us to be connected with other humans. And now we have more technology to do that, and it's making the world smaller. And I think that's, in the grand scheme of things, a good thing. It's abused, obviously. Every technology is abused, but in the grand scheme, it's a better thing to have that kind of connectivity than not to. That's my rant.
You know what? I think technology is great. The sad thing about it is there's so much information out there, great information, how to cook the greatest meal, that, something, if you got a problem, you can find something on the internet to kind of help you get through it. But there's also a real sad, dark community of people that's just putting so much bad stuff out there. And when you're on the internet, you're taking the good with the bad. The only thing I tell people is you got to have a very high filter. When you see something, you have to renew your mind. You have to just say, I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to dig into that story. I'm not going to dig into that stereotypical or whatever, and keep on moving, because you got to realize that this thing called the internet, there are some spin doctors and there's a lot of crazy shadowy figures out there that's making sure that they're peppering this thing with their own agendas and things like that. So you have to know who you are as a person. You have to know how you feel about a real, true human being, be it in your neighborhood or way on the other side of the world. Like, really quick, I was talking about the thing that happened in Ukraine. And I said, how did the world stand by and watch them bomb that place down to the ground? How did the whole world? And I was sitting there going, isn't there the United Nations? If I was the president, honest to God, if I was the president, I would have got on the phone, called the whole United Nations. I would have said, hey, everybody to the front line. Everybody's sending 100,000 troops. Everybody. And I would have stopped them and like, hey, hold on, Putin, listen. There's a lot of people over here. There are people at the grocery store, kids in school, people in grocery stores. Where are you going with these tanks, bro? You're not going to start. You're seriously not going to start shooting weapons at this sovereign country and start killing a bunch of innocent people? Can you? I don't even want to go there because I got a movie out of this in my head. But I said, could you imagine being on vacation or something? Just you're on vacation and bombs start dropping. That's the type of thing that could honestly happen, and that I'm sure there were people over there who might have been visiting friends. Now they're caught in a war and they didn't do nothing. They had no left or right. They had nothing to do with anything. They're just there. Look, when you see these old people walking down the street and they're crying and weeping, and they said, and they done made it 75, 80 years of their life, and they're too weak to even carry their bags, and they're trying to get out of town because now they've lost everything. I'm like, how did the whole entire world sit back and, well, we don't want to do that, I'm like, shouldn't somebody have said, hey, wait a minute, we need to circle the wagons and say, hey, dude, wait a minute, don't do this. There's a lot of innocent people going to get killed. But some people go, oh, well, it's just casualties of war. And I'm like, now that can happen anywhere. And now I'm really fearful. I'm thinking that type of thing can happen anywhere. If one person could sit back and bomb a nation all the way down, or a section all the way down to the ground like that, that could happen anywhere. What if somebody else does it? So everybody's going to stand back and keep watching it?
All right, you have to hold that thought, because that is a huge can of worms that I want to unpack, but we're out of time already. So next week, well, let's pick up right there. Absolutely.
All right. I'm there, and we'll log in earlier, and everything will be perfect.
Love you,